We just had an impressive rain after it being dry for so many days, and I wanted to bring you out to show you what's going on out here in the garden. I'm Justin Hitt from Prosperity Homestead, over here volunteering at the Sustainable Homestead Institute. And as you can see, there are many hundreds of plants in the ground, and we had this pour down rain, and I can see there's still just a little bit of moisture in the paths going through here. We have all kinds of zucchini and squash and all kinds of plants growing, and you can see that even though this was an impressive heavy rain, we still have cover on the ground, which prevented any mud or erosion running off. Now we tilled up some areas because this is not all permaculture style. We have some market garden styles, but you can see the permaculture style that has cover crops and interplanted. You have our squashes and peppers interplanted. It took the rain. So the rain is soaked in. There aren't any big puddles around here. The ground is soaked up that rain that was needed so badly. Now I'm walking down here to the edges to see if we had any kind of standing water near these little sump traps and pits. We don't have any water, so it really wasn't enough rain. But here you go. You can see we have squash down here as well. Down on the ends that way, there's potatoes and cucumbers. Over here is onions and some volunteer tomato plants as well. We have across the way here more tomato plants, some wildflowers. Up there next to the fish pond, there's some suwa and some different climbing types of vegetables that were used to climb up and shade over top of the fish. Down on the ends there, we're going to get around there. There's some tillage areas where they put in corn last week. Now what's important about this particular garden area is that it's a demonstration garden. It shows you different ways that we are gardening and creating food at a scale. So this is pretty big. It's 2 acres fenced in right here, and we probably got a good acre tilled, ready and go. But let me get down here to the beds. This bed here has wildflowers in it, I think. This bed over here, wow, look at that corn. Look at that corn. So that corn was put in just 2-3 days ago, and we're using every inch we can. This is a broadacre kind of design. It was done with one of those hand push corn planters. And now what's going to happen is once the corn gets to a certain height, we can plant watermelon between the corn, because the watermelon will spread out across the ground, and that will cover the ground and protect it from weeds and seeds while the corn grows up over top of it. On this edge is, again, wildflowers. We're putting in a lot of flowers for pollinating plants. And this is what I did last, I think it was Sunday or Monday, I don't remember, but basically this is eggplant and squash, and I've got sunflower seeds under that straw. So now this path is a little bit moist and a little bit muddy, but again, the compaction is happening on the paths, and the larger beds, there's some cabbages back there, the larger beds don't get anybody walking on them. Now you can see some of the cover crops coming back up through this that was tilled out. Now some equipment needs tillage, so we're not completely against tillage. We're just demonstrating different methods here where we're covering the tillage with straw. Over here, once the corn's up to a certain height, we can put in seedlings and then put some straw on that as well. And the corn won't shade out the watermelon because the watermelon will come out the outside edges. Look at that. The wildflower seeds are starting to go crazy in there. So we have kind of an intermittent cover crop, but we're going to do polyculture here. Now on the other side, I'm not sure if they got anything planted out here. You can see there are a number of other beds that are tilled out. Oh, there you go. Look at that row. Wow. That row right there is picked up pretty good. There's a row there, and there's still room on that bed to put in additional plants. I don't know if you saw the potatoes. It's really exciting. The rain really freshes stuff up. So here's some potatoes that are starting to kick up. And we still got room around those potatoes to polyculture. There's some bitter lettuces right here up on the edges there, and we eat those. It's getting a little warm to have the lettuces there, getting a little too bitter. And then this bed here still has room for additional plants. So I already have, okay, so here's our, I see something got in and ate a couple of our little squashes here, but there's some squash there, and there's some squash here, and there's squash all the way down the row past that stick. And then on the other side is potatoes that are finally coming up above the surface. Now, something interesting we're going to do here, and I've talked about it a number of times, is that we're going to start mounding around the potato greens to get us a big, nice, tall mound of potatoes, but we're going to use that to bring in our nutrients and bring in our top dressing rather than waiting to top dress the beds. See, this method of how we're spacing the plants. So you see a squash there, a squash there. It could be a crookneck squash. You see a potato there. We're going to mound up that potato, and then in between the other plants, we'll plant additional plants. Okay, so we're going to have squash and peppers, I think is one of the rows up there. This intercropping really takes up most of the space, so you don't really have room to top dress. So what we end up doing is we'll put a shovel full of soil between the plants as we're checking the plants. We might pour a wheelbarrow on the potatoes and build a big giant oversized mound for the potatoes and almost have the squash climbing around the bottom of the potatoes. But ultimately, we're top dressing the beds as materials are available, and we're mulching the beds with straw, and we're adding chop and drop. See all this hairy vetch and grasses in the paths? Chop and drop. Look, there's some more of that bitter. You got to be careful when you walk sometimes. There's some more of that bitter lettuce. Sometimes I'll transplant them out of the row and put them on the hill here. But basically all down this row with all the different plants and the layers of straw, the layers of cut grass, the layers of compost thrown in between areas. As the plants get bigger, we're layering in our nutrients. There's some more potato right there. That's why we can have so many different plants in one area. And look at that beauty over there. I think that is additional. Those might be jalapeno peppers and another brassica of some kind. And that row, because we're interplanting, that row has probably got 2 more rows that could be put into it. So we got 1 row with tillage because this is a new bed in front of us. So we have some tillage in it. We're on a slope, so we maintain a bund or a downslope mound to hold that bed in place, and then we just plant it. We get it planted. The more plants we can get in here, whether it's cover crop, see right here, there's a chicken manure put on that pile where there's some potatoes under there. See, I just pulled a wheelbarrow in, and I put a scoop of chicken manure or rabbit manure or whatever that is, bedding. I think it's rabbit bedding. I put it on there. Now we do have some potato bugs. We're going to use the squash method for that. But then I put straw and then I put other stuff. And then when the potatoes are harvested, we could just throw that in the row as a cover crop or as a top dressing or as mulch. And then we don't really have to till anymore. But some of these level beds, we might till just upslope and maintain structure on the lower slope so that we can use that automated planter. Because I'll tell you, that automated planter will plant. It'll plant a row of corn like this much faster than I can with a stick and bend it over. Let's walk down here real quick. I want to give you the full tour. And you see how everything's mowed nice and neat? We got a nice, neat little mow path here. This is actually cut flowers in this bed. I probably need to put down some more lime after these rains because I do see some plantains. I do see some plants that favor an acidic soil. But if you look closely, you'll see about every 6 to 8 inches kind of a blade coming up. That's a cut flower that we're putting in place. You can see it over here too. And now I put those in the ground by hand. Again, sometimes you need a mechanical planter, and so you can till it up and put a mechanical planter in. Here's a nice row here of potatoes that I'm going to mulch around, and another 2 rows that have been tilled out. I tilled these out a couple days ago. Now look at this. You'll notice that vegetative strip down the center of there. Oh, and look at that, already a row of plants in here. I think these are watermelons. Okay, so the watermelons are in. We could probably put some corn around that. But that vegetative strip is how we move up and down the area here. So this vegetative strip is pretty firm, and periodically we'll come through and just chop it down. But what it's doing is, you notice how the bed upslope has a different elevation than the bed downslope. Well, what it's doing is it's giving us a solid ground between the tillage. So we have what's called strip tillage. It's giving us a solid area between our strip tillage in order to kind of get compacted, in order to work as a kind of retaining wall for this uneven ground. Now again, a lot of this stuff's going to go into permanent beds, but we're not against tillage. We have a BCS tractor, and a BCS tractor will take something like this and just we mark the contours, and then we till out the strips. So you can see these strips tilled out. Maybe we'll till it every 2 years. Maybe we'll till it every other year. Sometimes we're going to put in corn. We're going to put in, you know, grains and stuff like that. Sometimes you need to till for that kind of stuff. So you could broad fork it, but look how much space we're covering. Okay, I want to show you one more thing. The ground down here is unprocessed. This ground down here is hard as a rock. And I actually got in with the same tiller that did up there. And I tried to till out a row just to see what's going on. And this is only about 1 inch deep. So what we're probably going to do is mark contours down here, till some rows out just to put in some cover crops, just to kind of break up the soil. Now, we are very mindful of our soil structure. And when you're looking up slope, what are we seeing? We're not seeing tilled out beds. When you're looking up slope, you're seeing the edge of that grass. It's called natural vegetative strip. You're seeing that edge of that vegetative strip. Now, when we're tilling, we are losing soil structure. We're ruining the habitat for the worms and such. And so these vegetative strips, we're going to let them get wider and wider and wider, so that not only can we walk on those strips, but that also the strips help better define the slope so that we have a more structured area with less tillage over time. Because once we get into permanent vegetables, perennials, and other things, we won't need to till it anymore. The soil will be soft enough. But when we're started here, it's that good old Virginia clay. Okay, that good old Virginia clay is telling us it don't want to be turned over. So again, we're turning it over responsibly. And you can see these beds here. There's a couple more sets of beds that I worked out. But it's not something, I know you guys have that permaculture dream. You're going to do it manually. You're going to have no, you're going to do up top there for 2 or 3 acres. And you're going to have no till. And we're not going to use any gasoline. But I'll tell you folks, I did this area with a hoe. And I broke up the soil and I planted, you can see the cut flowers here. But son, that'll break your back. If you're going to cover some ground, sometimes the tillage is better if you do it in a responsible way. Now, we can teach you the responsible way. There's even a little like 1 foot or 6 inch bump up here because we measured out what is level contour. We want level paddock size or level strips where we're growing so that we don't get any erosion. And what you'll see in this area here and what you'll see all across these areas is there's no little strips of erosion. We've left a lot of areas just kind of untouched because we want that root mass down in the soil. We want the wildflowers and the stuff and the different nutrients. We want to be able to read the land and understand what kinds of plants are coming up and what kinds of soils we have. And so we're resolving the normal erosion problems. We're adding nutrients to the soil. Look at all that hairy vetch. Hairy vetch is a nitrogen fixer. I think I'll walk up just one more area here. Over this area, we're going to put some berries, different types of briars and berry bushes. You can see there used to be some erosion here. You can see a little bit of cutting right here where there used to be some erosion. And we actually put in more cut flowers on this edge. And what we did is we changed the direction of the mounds and hills. Now, it doesn't look like much when you're here taking a tour. You're going to see that there's trenches and mounds. You can see here that there's like a path, and all that was mounded up here. It's another row of potatoes and a trail. Well, again, the trail is diverting that water rather than coming the hill. I want to show you something really nice here. We got a little strip in the back here. Look at those cucumbers. They're going to go crazy. Now, you can see there's potatoes here. There's a level flat area. We used a little bit of tillage because, again, when you're using that planter to put those seeds in the ground, it goes really quick. Now, yes, we could straw this up a bit, and we can get to that straw, but we can also shave this grass down with a sickle and then plant right in it, straw the whole thing over, and really start getting a combination of cucumbers and other types of plants in here so that we get the most plants for the least amount of space while maintaining our soil till. Now, it's rained a little bit, so I'm going to be careful walking on this, but this little berm right here we could walk on. Over the years, it will compact down and it'll hold the rest of that hill in place. But it's better to walk in these little contoured trails. You can see more potatoes here. There's a little cutout in the front here, so we're soaking those potatoes and getting the moisture in. And what I'm probably going to do maybe a little later is I'll start cutting through here. Now, if you're foraging, you've got a lot of great forage in here. But I'll probably shave some of these plants out of here and mound them on top of the potatoes so that we're getting a combination of straw, manure, compost, cuttings, everything to mound those potatoes up. And we're going to have mounds of nutrition in the potatoes. They'll come out of the ground, and then we'll just spread everything over the overall bed. And you might be saying, well, Justin, this is kind of messy. Well, again, this is a demonstration garden that shows you 3 or 4 different styles of gardening. And we try to show you the appropriateness of each style as it fits the contour and the design of this particular land. In fact, we didn't design the land. This is kind of how the land was. We're working with nature. Now, we keep it all nice and neat around the outside because there are snakes and stuff. And you might be asking, what about mice? Well, most gardens are going to have mice in them. The mice that might be in here, they're going to get eaten by the snakes. There's a lot of open spaces where it's difficult for the mice to get around. You know, we even have a little bit of like a garden you might have at your house. It's just a basic little garden area. And these are fish. And, you know, it's just a little bit of everything to get you going and give you ideas of what you can do on your own property. I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead. And again, I'm out here working on the Sustainable Homestead Institute, an educational center and a resource for you to learn how to do some farming and do some permaculture, do some survival classes, see how this stuff is done in real life. And you're going to click the link below and request more information. You're going to ask questions. There's some nuances that we could talk about how these different contoured paths are actually at different elevations, and how the nutrients are trapped and spread out, how we're using the straw to reduce weeding, and how we're using the cover crops to reduce work. By the way, there's some greens there. Look at all these greens. There's so much food here. We could teach a foraging class right inside the garden fence area. But again, it teaches you about what's all over the property and how to look for it. Pattern recognition is key. Again, look at that. More zucchini, more green peppers. And we might even have space in here. We probably shouldn't. So we got zucchini, green pepper, zucchini. Probably only got space to scoop some compost in there. Folks, this is exciting. I'm going to get back in the greenhouse and pot up some more plants. I just wanted to come out here and show you everything after we had this big pouring down rain. You'll notice that the garden paths are not muddy. There are areas that are muddy and the ground is soft, but up here where we have this particular design of garden, the paths are not muddy. The plants are not beaten to death with the rain. The wind and rain doesn't bother them because they've got cover crops in between it. They've got a lot of mulch on the surface, and the plants are really kicking up and getting strong. Now, we're going to keep adding to this garden. We're going to plan out the whole area, and I do hope you'll click the link below, join our mailing list, and come out here and check out what we're doing. Come out here and see how you could grow abundance at your own home. It doesn't have to be this big. You could start in your backyard. Oh, there's some raised beds there with asparagus. And oh my gosh, just a little everything. Thanks for watching. Again, I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead. Click the link below. Join our mailing list. You can like and subscribe and all that, but join the mailing list so we can invite you out to see what's going on here. Plus, there's additional videos on different channels. We'd love to show it to you. Click the link below. Visit me at www.prosperityhomestead.org. Oh, look at that. That's honey locust out there. Why would you have honey locust in the garden? I'll share it with you in the next video. Thanks for watching.